What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Creative Rise podcast. So glad you were here today because we are talking about how to not create a terrorist for your business, how to deal with conflict in your business, the do's, the don'ts, the things that we are all inevitably going to run into as business owners, and how you handle this to these types of situations is a massive descriptor of what your business is going to look like in the future. And unfortunately, it's not always handled properly.
No.
So
we want a personal example that we can give right now.
Yeah, we've got a personal example. First of all, so glad you guys are here. If you're newer to the show, Creative Rise exists for one thing only: to help you get paid to do what you love, help you live in a world where you're more successful at doing what you love because you understand business strategy. Growing a creative business is about having good work, but once your work gets to a certain level, it's then about really making sure you're optimizing your knowledge and structure around your business so your business can actually grow. And that's entirely what this podcast is for. Christy's got a background, almost a decade as a destination wedding photographer, and I've got a background of a decade as a content agency owner, working in the brand world. And she now works in the brand world. I work in the brand world. And we still help a ton of wedding people. You still shoot a wedding here or there, having some fun with it. The occasional. You got to be really lucky if Christy's going to shoot your wedding because she's baller at it. She's so good at it.
And being a wedding photographer was the best job ever.
Yeah. So
incredible.
Welcome, guys. We're so glad you are here. So we've got almost 20 years of experience collectively as self-employed creatives. And with 20 years of collective experience comes 20 years of potential hiccups with clients. Hey, this did not go well, or I'm frustrated about this. One time I shot somebody's wedding and I missed the entire morning. I showed up as she was walking down the aisle, running in, putting my gimbal together as the bride passed me with her father, holding her dad's hand, walking down the aisle to get married. And I was supposed to be there 6 hours before that, or 5 hours before that. I've made mistakes. I had to handle that situation and communicate through that situation. And that's a whole other story. We can touch on it a little bit if you think it's probably a good point for today. But I have been the person wronging people. And then I've also been on the other side where I have been wronged as the vendor or even as the client. So we bring you today's conversation with empathy. We bring you today's conversation with confidence that you can do this right and you can do this from the right place. And we bring a little bit of experience.
We also bring a warning that if you do not act like a service provider in a service-based industry, you will not succeed. You will just not succeed. And this is something that I feel like is so important because you can have all the other business strategy, but if the customer service falls flat, and we've seen this time and time again, if the customer service side of it falls flat, if people do not feel like they are taken care of, gosh, your business can be gone in an instant. Yep. So this is like a warning podcast as well, in such a friendly way, but a warning podcast as well, that hopefully you can take this really to heart because there has been times these can be landmine conversations, and if you step wrong, it could blow up your whole business.
So this kind of podcast idea came from something that I experienced actually 2 days ago. So a couple of weeks ago, I had gotten a new client in the brand consulting side of what I do now. And this client was worth a good amount of money, about $17,500, $18,000. And it was a referral. So I wanted to thank the person that had referred me. So in order to thank the person that had referred me, I said, what could I do? Well, they've got a lot of money. Money's not going to do anything. Why don't I thank them with a gift? So I had bought them a really nice bottle of scotch, and I had sent it to their house. I'd shipped it to their house via an online website where you could buy whiskey and scotch and bourbon and all that stuff. And so I had bought a really nice couple $100 bottle of scotch, and I had gotten it shipped to their house. Well, a couple weeks goes by, and the client never got what I had sent him. The client never got the gift. So I follow up with the company, and the company responds to me saying, oh, it was delivered. They didn't get it. And I'm saying, well, I didn't get it. And they said, well, it was delivered. And I said, well, what do we do about this? Because I bought your $12 shipping protection, shipping loss or theft protection. When I checked out with you guys, I bought that. So I'm assuming you're going to reship another bottle and it'll all get taken care of. Thank you guys so much. And then they went on to ghost me. So after a couple days, I had found their phone number online. It was actually really hard to find their phone number. I actually found it inside of my credit card statements. I found their phone number. So I gave them a call and just said, hey, here's the situation. I've been chatting with some of you guys via email. And I really want to get the situation figured out and fixed as I spent this much money with you guys and the bottle never got to my client. It was a thank you gift. It's now been a month and a half, 2 months since I told him I sent him a thank you. So it's looking bad on me. How do we fix this? How do we resolve this? And here's some of the things that I was told. You were standing in the kitchen.
My jaw was like on the floor. I was like, this might be the worst conversation I've ever heard.
Christy was like
From
a
their end,
ghost.
not
She
Joey.
was like, this
Joey
is
was-
ridiculous.
And I just wanted to preface, Joey was so calm and kind the entire time. And this guy, I would not have been this nice. I will say that. I would have not have been.
You wouldn't have been as nice as me. You're
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I tend to actually thrive in like being calm in like kind of hectic situations. It's a part of my personality that I like. Here's some of the things this guy said. The first thing he said was, hello. And then he said, oh, you just woke me up. It was 1:17 in the afternoon. This guy owns this big distributor, as so it looks. Maybe the whole thing's a scam. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. But it's this website where I'd ordered this stuff off. Apparently, I woke him up. He was sounding sleepy. And he said, well, what are you going to do if I send you another bottle and it gets stolen? Are you just going to call me again? What do you think I am? A website where you can just get free stuff? He then says, if I'm going to meet you in the middle, you have to spend more money with me in order for me to help you and send you another bottle. Because I said, hey, well, I bought your shipping, loss, and theft protection. It must have been stolen. My client didn't receive it. You said it got shipped and it landed on his doorstep. So I bought your policy and it says you're just going to reship another bottle. And he says, yeah, well, I don't really like that policy and we should probably take that down. And I said, well, it's up there right now and I bought it. So I need you to do what your policy says. I bought the insurance, right? And he says, well, you got to spend a little bit more money because the bottle cost me $105 at cost. So I don't want to be down $105 and sending you another bottle. I need you to pay me at least like $65. I'll meet you in the middle. And I'm looking at him going, sir, you're wanting to give me a horrible customer experience. And that is worth you making $45 or $65 off me? Like, is that really you making me frustrated and never ordering from you again, telling everybody you're scam? Is that going to make really that $65 you're getting worth it, right? He then says, well, I train people not to respond to your emails because we don't like doing this type of thing. Then he would go, I won't lie to you. Most guys in this industry would just tell you to F off, and I could be telling you that right now, so you should be happy I'm even talking to you. Then he says, fine, I'll give you the bottle for free, but you have to pay the $12 shipping. We got to the point where I'd convinced him that the policy that I had bought through his own website, he had to actually come clean on. And he said, fine, but you have to pay the $12 for shipping. And I looked at him again and I said, sir, I paid for the protection. I paid for the insurance policy. You have to cover shipping as well. Are you really going to leave me feeling really frustrated because you're not coming clean on what you said you're going to do? By making me pay $12. Like, it's $12, bro. That's like a meal at In-N-Out or like a meal, it's just a principle thing at this point. And then he says, well, I don't want to be a bad guy. I can hang up on you and you won't get any refund. I'm doing you a big favor by even talking to you. It was just like, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. And it reminded me of so many situations I've heard about in the creative industry where we've heard about a lot of these where clients will ask you for crazy requests and creatives respond super poorly, or clients will ask you for non-crazy requests. And creatives will respond so poorly.
Yes.
And there's this thing that we like to say. This is like so important. If you run your own creative business, this is so important. You have to do whatever you can to protect your reputation and not create a terrorist for your business. Anything you can do that is reasonable to not damage your reputation and not create a terrorist, you should highly, highly consider doing. So a couple other examples.
Yeah, you might be thinking like, oh, I would never tell someone that on the phone. I would never treat someone like that. So this podcast isn't for me. But imagine you have a client and they come back to you and they say, hey, I actually really don't like the edits. Can you just send me the raws? How would you respond, right? I know a lot of creatives. I have a lot of friends who have asked that of the photographer that they hired for their wedding, and they got back a super offended response.
Scalding.
It is in my contract that I will not deliver raws. How insulting is it that you would even ask for them in the first place? This is my artistic ability, blah, blah, blah. They rail their clients when their client asks for something that's actually not that ridiculous.
No.
And it is crazy, the response. So it may not be as extreme as, oh, you're telling a client to F off or anything like that. However, it may be in how you respond to people and how you deliver that either news or how you make things right or whatever that is. And whether or not you are getting really offended very easily, and then you are translating that offense into a response. And that
Mm,
can be very, very damaging for a client.
100%. So I'll take
Not
you guys all the way
worth it.
back to the example that I quickly shared at the beginning of this, where I basically missed somebody's wedding. I didn't shoot very many weddings in my time. I was always in the brand space, but there was one wedding I got hired to shoot that was like a friend of a friend, and it was on an army base about 3.5 hours from where I was living in the summertime. And I get a call from the bride the morning of her wedding. So I learned, she said, "Hey, it's like 11:30. You're not here yet. You missed the entire getting ready part of my day." And
Where are you?
I'm going, "What are you talking about? Your wedding's tomorrow." And she's like, "My wedding's today." And I remember where I was. I was at a summer camp. I was in the cafeteria. I had put a chicken burger on my plate, and I literally dropped everything and I ran outside, and I immediately ran back to the cabin where I was, and I grabbed all my stuff. I jumped in a car and I drove the fastest I will ever drive again in my life, 3.5 hours to get to where she was. And the whole way there, I was going, "How is this possible? How is this possible? How is this possible? Her wedding is tomorrow." I pull up her contract. The signed contract says her wedding is the next day, which means I was right about it from what I was thinking. Now, upon further investigation, thinking about it a little bit more on my long drive, I had realized that I probably had misheard them when they told me what date their wedding was. Therefore, I sent them a contract with the wrong date. They, not doing their due diligence on looking through the contract, missed the date that I had said their wedding was. And therefore, that was the date they got on my calendar. Who's at fault? We're both at fault. Who missed the bride's wedding? Me.
Mhm.
I am the problem. So even though we were both at fault, what did I do? I showed up. I immediately went, "I am so, so sorry. This is all on me. You guys have every right to be furious. I should have triple checked with you your date, and I'm refunding you the entire wedding." Why? Because my reputation is more important than creating a terrorist, and this is the best day of someone's life. And I had caused a massive hiccup, even though it was at best mutually both our faults, right?
Yeah.
So what you said is so important. Do not get offended. I could have easily been like, "Screw you. You told me it was this date. You signed the contract. I'm not driving 3.5, 4 hours. Like, I'm not even anywhere close. You can't be mad at me. This is your fault." No, but instead, I got in my car, risked getting pulled over, flew all the way there, showed up, apologized, refunded them the entire wedding, said, "I'm so, so sorry. No idea where the bobble happened, but it happened. And because it happened, I'm the service provider. I'll take full responsibility, full refund. I'm here to shoot the rest of the day. So, so sorry." And
Yeah.
we ended up having a really great conversation about it. Ended the wedding really, really well. They were stoked on what they got,
I got a free film.
and they got a free film. So,
Yeah. And you may be
point
on the,
is,
you
I was
may
unoffendable.
Yes, and you may be on the other side of this where you're like, it wasn't my fault though. Like it was the client's fault. Like they didn't show up or they didn't bring to the table their expectations. They had completely different expectations than what I was going to give them. And it's actually on them and it has more to do with them and I am in the right. You may be in the right, but that doesn't excuse you from still being a service provider. That does not excuse you for getting frustrated at a client and lashing out at them or getting offended and being able to just say whatever you want, right? It's about how do we de-escalate the situation in a way that really helps somebody else be able to go, okay, how do we soften them? How do we soften them to where we both get to a spot where we feel like we can actually sit on the same side of the table? Too often with clients, whether it's their fault or your fault, or it's a mixture of both sides of the coin, we sit on the opposite side of the table and we look at each other. And it's this total impasse, it's this total standoff. And instead of thinking about us versus them, let's think, okay, let's view the problem as the problem. And we are both on the same side of the table, looking at the problem and working on the problem. If you look at maybe it's the misunderstanding or the miscommunication or the missed expectations, that's the problem. It's not Cindy over there. It's not Troy over there. It's the problem that is the problem. And so I think sometimes that can be a helpful thing to even just mentally picture of like, okay, this person is not the enemy. The problem is the problem. So let's both get on the same side of the table. There's a lot of different ways you can handle this, but something that recently happened in our Creative Rise grad community. So this is for people that went through the Creative Rise Mastermind. They can opt into a monthly community with us. It's super fun. We do a bunch of calls. We also have an app where people can ask questions. And so this last week, one of our members, I'll keep it private, but she dropped in a screenshot of a DM that she got from a client. And the photos, it was a proposal shoot, and the photos are gorgeous. Like,
Beautiful.
absolutely stunning, beautiful photos. Like, I'm like, if I had proposal photos like that, I would die. These are amazing. How could you even say anything bad about it? But, you've got clients, everyone's got their own expectations, opinions, whatever. And she basically got a bad response from a client saying, hey, we didn't like how we were posed in this way, and we're frustrated with the lighting because it was a cloudy day.
It was fully overcast.
So they're like, we were really frustrated with this and this and this, and kind of went off on her. And what she could have done was gotten really offended and either didn't write them back or didn't send them the rest of the photos, or came back at them and said, well, none of that's my fault. And that's ridiculous that you would even say something. How rude that you would even say that to an artist.
You hired me.
You hired
should
me
have known
for
what you were
my
going to get
style.
style-wise. Yeah.
But she didn't. She did a smart thing. And this is the first thing you should always do when you are in conflict with a client is stop.
Pause.
Pause for a second, because we can try to be unoffendable, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's impossible to not at least feel jarred in the first 5 seconds of something when someone comes at you with a conflict, right? You get that white hot feeling in your chest and you instantly become defensive. The best remedy is to pause, just stop, take a breath, and if you need to, step away, ask a friend, ask someone who is just non-biased for their opinion. And that's exactly what she did. She did so smart. She sent it to the community and she's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so this is what I said to tell them. I said, first of all, sorry this happened. I know responses like that can be discouraging, especially when there are factors that are out of your control, like weather. I think these images are stunning, blah, blah, blah. I said, best thing you can do is not make a terrorist. I would express your gratitude for them choosing you, that you enjoyed working with them, and that you want them to have a great experience, that you want every single one of your clients to have an awesome A+ experience. They had asked for the raws. I said, give them the raws.
Absolutely.
And offer to crop in, because one of the things was about the cropping of the photos. Offered to crop in on their favorite 5 images. Express that the weather was out of your control, which is why the images are a bit darker, and that this is very common in the area of your choice. But you would absolutely, for free, brighten them up in their edits, so that could be something that would make them happy. Some people just have unrealistic expectations, and that's okay. Just handle it with gentleness and an expression that you want them to have a great experience, and what can you do to help, and people tend to soften after that. So if you can stop, pause, get on the same side of the table with the client, tell them, reassure them that you want them to have a great experience, and that we can talk about how we can make this a win for them. If you do that, I promise you, 9 times out of 10, those people will soften. They'll often take responsibility. Oh, well, you know what? You're kind of right. Like, I didn't fully express my expectations. Or, oh, you're right. The weather, it is out of your control. Like, people end up apologizing back to you when immediately before they were so white hot mad and they were blaming everything on you. So becoming unoffendable is like the best thing you can do in this type of work, right? Because you are a service-based person in a service-based industry. And so to become unoffendable, you got to separate the issue from you personally. You got to separate the issue from your art. You got to separate the issue from that person. You got to separate it so that you don't take it on personally and then want to like lash out and defend your character when your character is most of the time not up for discussion.
No,
it's the problem and it's the issue that's up for discussion.
Yeah, totally. So that is very, very, very important. Do not get defensive. Your role is to be unoffendable. Do not get defensive. Don't make it about you. Depersonalize it. Get on the same side of the table, as Christy said. Focus on the problem. Don't focus on them. Don't let them focus on you. Both of you focus on the problem and go, how do we create a solution for this? This must have been hard for you to bring up. It's probably uncomfortable sending a message to me like this. So I'm glad you did. How can we solve this problem? What does it look like to get a fix here? Because that's what I want to do for you. I want to help fix this, right? That is how you need to approach it. Protect your reputation. Do not create a terrorist for your business. So last but not least, a quick little bonus tip. This is something Christy and I talk about all the time and that we really try and exercise if we ever get into a situation like this. But get on the phone as quickly as possible.
Yes.
The faster you handle something like this, the better it's going to be. Now, don't skip the step where we just said you got to pause. We really do believe in once you get that DM or you get that angry email or that angry text message, it's great to take a second, take a breather, figure out how to recenter yourself and
Make a plan.
depersonalize it, right? It's not about you. Make a little bit of a plan, but then try and get on the phone. The faster you can have clear, crisp communication with somebody, especially on the phone, because people will always be way more of a savage to you via email than they would ever be able to be to your face or on FaceTime or on a phone call. So get on the phone quickly. It shows to the client that you care about handling their problem or their concern with priority. And that is a very important thing when it comes to showing somebody you respect them and that you're grateful for their business and that you're going to do everything you can to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So,
And if you are maybe on the flip side of this, you're not someone who maybe gets offended easily, but you are a little bit of a people pleaser and you'll be like, oh, I will just immediately claim responsibility for every single little thing that went wrong. And I'm just going to refund them every time, or I'm going to break my back to do all these other things that wasn't in the contract or wasn't in this and this and this. I like when people go outside of the contract. I like going outside of the contract to do things for people, to over deliver, to make sure I keep the relationship, to do those types of things. But people respect you to the amount you respect yourself. So this is not like a license for like all the people pleasers out there to be like, see, you have to just kill yourself to try to make your every client happy.
no.
You may not make them happy, but you can make them feel valued. So if happy is they get every single little thing they want plus 10,000 more things, that's not the goal. The goal is, how do they feel taken care of? How do they feel respected?
Yeah.
How do they feel valued? And so you got to go, what is that happy medium where I can help them get there and I can still respect myself? So I think that's a really good balance of, hey, I'm going to ditch the people pleasing. I'm going to focus on the other person and go, how do I make them feel valued?
But being a people pleaser is still always better in this scenario than being a straight up jerk,
Amen to
because
that.
you will damage your reputation if you're a straight up jerk.
No
So,
one will ever buy whiskey from you again.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm not buying whiskey from that guy again, ever again. Anyways, guys, hope you guys are having a great day. Hopefully this was really helpful. If it was, we would love if you would leave us a written review on the iTunes/Apple Podcast platform. That is a great way. On Spotify, give us a review. Comment on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're watching these. We love that. It's a great way for the show to grow. And it's a great way for us to, just engage with you and see who's listening, which is great. So hit us up on socials. If you have a crazy story, like some of the stories we mentioned today, we would love to hear your story. And maybe we will anonymously read it out if you're okay with that and you give us permission to do so. But so glad you guys were here today. We will see you next week as we help you get paid to do what you love as a creative, because there's nothing better than getting to do what you love for a living and getting paid well to do it. It's exactly why the show exists. So from us and the rest of the team here that makes this podcast happen, we are, grateful you're here. We'll catch you next week.
Bye, guys.